Hello and welcome to Man's Model Moments once again. Here we are on, sorry, my dog is doing some weird things down there. And you'll have to excuse me as well, because I don't know why at the tail end of September, as the weather is getting worse, my hay fever seems to have suddenly decided that it wants to make a late showing in the year. So if I sneeze and sniff, apologies, that is the reason. It's my overactive and aggressive immune system that is the issue. Right, so last time we didn't I used the royal we again. It's like I can somehow blame my lack of activity last time on you guys. I didn't get a huge amount done, principally because I was intending to spray the interior of the Hunter, and of course I couldn't get my compressor to switch on. I did actually think, when was the last time I drained my compressor? And so went about doing that. That wasn't the issue, but this was what I got out. There's quite a lot of rusty water there, which I'm actually leaving to sort of concentrate a bit, because or maybe even dry completely, because then I'll have some very authentic rust effects to be able to use. All right. Now let me get out of banners and go to comments and chat, because I haven't seen it. World War II scale models. Dave, good evening. Welcome to the old membership as well. John, welcome. David, welcome. Davros. Davros Halfbeard. Wow, that's a name and a half. Good evening. Go for it painting. Hello. So let me give you a synopsis of what happened last time for those of you that weren't there. Did actually paint the old cockpit. So painted the inside of the wheel wells, painted the inside of the fuselage bit that we can see, painted the cockpit tub, including dry brushing. This time I'm going to be washing those areas to just boost that contrast in the shadows. We also have the instrument panel. We'll put the decal on that. And the ejection seat, which we need to detail paint. Didn't do any painting on this, but it probably should. Yeah, probably should. And that was it. So progress-wise, it's always that stage of a model, when you're starting an aircraft, where you get to that bit where you've got to do all these painting bits before closing stuff up. Often a bit I used to get stuck on. Probably still get stuck on. I have also brought some more of my thin cement from the shop to replenish my Tammy Extra Thing bottle after I emptied half of it all over on the very first stream. Let me show you what I've got here at the moment. This is not obviously the Hunter. Well, I mean, this is the Hunter. This is what I was working on Airfix and Chill last night. Is my little ferret. So I'll give you guys a bit of a sneak preview. So last night I was doing the arduous task of paint chipping. So you can see I've done quite an extensive amount on the front. It's going to have a lot of stowage on, so you may not see an awful lot of that. And then fairly extensive all the way. It's going to have a lot of stowage on this. This is a Gulf War ferret. And there are some really nice reference photos from that time of ferrets used out there. They were used Mark IIs were used, Mark 1/2s as well, with a fixed turret. I didn't want to do that much scratch building. I don't think that would be really fair on the Airfix kit either. As kind of a building review. The wheels, I also chipped those, which you can probably just about see. For those of you who are thinking, oh, you've not been very careful with the spraying on those wheels, that is deliberate, because when they actually camouflaged these up, they didn't bother taking the tires off. They just sprayed the centers. And some really good photos, actually, where this is how they look. So you just did a load of overspray on the centers of the tires, because it's like, well, it doesn't matter, does it? You know, it's like it will wear off if it wears off, or it won't, and it'll be a bit more camouflaged. So always amuses me when you see real life is a lot more slapdash than some of the things we do in modeling. Oh, so Davey, I see Davros Halfbeard is a gaming tag. Fair enough. Fair enough. It sounded cool anyway. But yes, that is the ferret. So build video on that will be coming out shortly. I'm going to actually put the build video up, and then I'm going to do the sort of, if you like, conversion of it to a 1990s vehicle. And I've got all these pieces here that I've 3D printed, including the GPLMG, because of course they didn't have Brownings in the Gulf War. We did use a lot of old stuff, but not quite that old. So it'll be a series of 2 videos. One will be actual build of the ferret, the kind of base ferret. I kind of leave it at the prime stage, and then go back in and do the painting of the desert camouflage, and then I'll do the weathering, the chipping, all of the conversion pieces, and to make it that 1991 Gulf War thing. Oh, there's the turret, which, you know, not much to say about it. That bit needs drilling out a bit for the GPLMG, but I really like the kit. I really enjoyed it. I think Airfix have done a really good job, considering that you can get this, you know, in a lot of places for like £22, including my shop. It is £22. You know, it's just a really nice little build. It builds up quite quickly. There's a ton of options that you can do with this, because it was such a widely used little beast. And it'll be interesting to see what Airfix do in the future. You know, I would love to see them do a Mark V, which had the low turret with the, what were they, swing fire missiles. I think that looks cool. But anywho, that is the ferret, not the subject of tonight's build. Where is the box for it? There we go. So, a couple of things to do before we get started in earnest. Is I need to transfer this stuff over. I'm not going to pour it, don't worry. Given my recent success with this, I think it's best to use a pipette. Good evening from the Lake District. What is the weather like in the Lake District at the moment? It's been pretty crappy down here in the southwest until today. Today actually was quite a nice day, but I'm not sure I'd fancy the Lake District if it was as crappy weather up there as it has been here in the last couple of days. Hi Phil, hi Andy. Western Supermare, not a million miles away from me. That's where my sister-in-law used to live. and then she moved to Cleveland. Oh, what's the place? Oh, Portishead. My ex came from Bristol, although she wasn't originally from there. So, which is why I live in the southwest now. It was a move for a job, and I had a couple of choices. I could have gone north of London or over to the southwest. And this was the decision we made, to be closer to her family. And also somewhere we could actually afford. So we started off in the Thames Valley, and we kept travelling west until we could actually afford the renting somewhere. And that's how I ended up in Wiltshire. And then gradually over the years, I have meandered through Wiltshire to end up in Dorset. But for those of you who don't know UK geography, Wiltshire, Somerset, Dorset, Devon are all kind of packed together. I live kind of almost on the border of the three. So the shop is in Somerset, but I live in Dorset. And my ex and my youngest daughter live in Wiltshire. And it's 20 minutes drive between the three. So a meeting of the ways, as it were. Right. Evening, Michelle. So let's see. I think we probably start off with the decal or decal, as that will actually take some time to dry. Do the detail painting here, and then we'll slam it all together. I think that sounds like a plan. Oh, washes as well. Yeah, that sounds like a plan. So, decal sheets. It has to be said, Airfix's decal sheets of late, the last 12 to 15 years, I guess, when they've been done by Cartograph, are superb. But there is a caveat with that. Like when I did the Sea King, it took hours, literally hours, to put on all of the stenciling. And I know in our little YouTube circle, some of the modelers there are just like, I just do the big ones and the like most prominent stencils and forget the rest. And I completely get that, because are you really going to notice? I mean, look at all these. There are hundreds. I mean, look at them. They're tiny, 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 tiny. I mean, yeah, it's going to look great to have them all on, but oof, that part, because these are all the common ones, right, in this box, and then these are the, depending on which version you're doing. Well, I mean, these, I guess, are common, but, well, I guess if you're doing one, then it's, you get where I'm coming from. But yeah, that's going to be interesting, let's say. Right, so let's get the nerd goggles. My sexy goggles. So I can actually see where I'm cutting, so I don't end up doing something stupid here. Because these are actually quite close together, these pieces there. So I usually find that actually cutting with a scalpel is easier than using a pair of scissors. It doesn't do wonders for your scalpel blade. Cutting paper and card actually is not really very good. Or sharp blades, it's one of the quickest ways to dull them. Cardboard especially. Currently doing a one. Oh, I keep forgetting that I can show these. That sounds interesting. A French ice cream van. Full lighting and sound with cellar and ice cream scoop. Now, if it also deposits small amounts of scale model amounts of ice cream, I'll be extremely impressed. I'm guessing, Andy, it doesn't do that, right? Where is my pledge? Where is my pledge gone? One would almost think I would have got everything I needed ready before I start these, right? In actual fact, what happens is I get home, I check Discord and messages, email, make sure there's nothing outstanding from like the shop or anything like that. Sort the dog, make myself some food, and then it's basically straight in here. I did have my pledge very recently, so it is here. No, it is. Is it on the floor? No. And yes, I am going to be using pledge rather than, people's most often used microsol and microset, because voiced my opinions on those. Not that they don't work, they do. They're just money for old rope. So here we go. The pledge. Let's get. Again, I'm looking for that palette that I couldn't find the other night. Well, I'll use this dirty old palette instead. Completely unideal. As long as bits don't come out, it'll be fine. There we go. Let's just pull that piece of paint out. That's good enough for rock and roll. It should be called modeling by the seat of your pants, shouldn't it? Hi, Penny's Pit Stop. Welcome. Again, I'm going to go to my trusty, very heavily abused Humbrol brush. So these are just the ones that get in the starter sets. I've got a whole bunch of them somewhere around here. Yeah. There are a whole bunch of Humbrol starter set brushes in here, as well as a whole bunch for this, and a load of crap because I dropped this on the floor before. My trusty airbrush cleaning tool. Various other bits and bobs. So first of all, let's give this a nice coat of pledge. And you know what? I'm going to do a wash in here. I'm going to do the same thing for the cockpit. So one of the other things, of course, is that British cockpits in the 60s, 50s, 60s tended to be semi-gloss black. So, which is quite convenient when you're, trying to put decals on and pledging everything, because it means you don't actually have to matte it down afterwards, because it's kind of the right level of gloss. So one of the reasons I use a coat of gloss effectively pledge is, of course, it helps the flow of the wash, because I'm going to use an oil-based wash. Just helps it to not accumulate in all the places I don't want it. So, of course, you want capillarity to draw it into those crevices and not just pool on the surface somewhere. I'm actually going to do that to all of these areas. I'm actually going to, I think I mentioned on the last stream, I'm going to dry brush these with sort of an aluminium after this. But I'm going to wash them first for the wheel wells. The reason is because I do want to considerably lighten that colour. Because as I said previously, this is oily steel. It's a little bit darker than the colour I want, but I want it to kind of help emphasize shadow and bring up from that. And we also have the pieces on the sprue. So you can see I'm not being meticulous about what I needed to paint. Like, so I've not done any of the pieces like the interior of any landing gear covers, which I think are on the other sprue. These are the ones, I believe these are the ones just for, yes, these are the ones just for if you want it in flight. Yeah, here we go. Here's the other bay doors. I haven't done all of those because those are going to be more on display. So I want to get the color closer to just the flat aluminium. I'll probably start with, I'll probably actually just spray them to start with. Football is definitely not an excuse. God, terrible. I'm not a sports person myself, but I'll forgive you. As RC Road Night was actually my first purchase from the web store, you could be forgiven many things. Okay. So this, I think, the detail, the raised detail on this is quite aggressive. So I think when I put this on, I will probably end up using some solvent. So I probably will use, I might use some microsol on that because I've got some hanging around. And of course, microsol and microset completely independent. One doesn't require the other. Or maybe, oh, I don't have any alcohol. Yeah, it's at the shop. I was thinking I could actually just use a little bit of extra thin that's in here, just diluted with a little bit of alcohol and water, and show you that does exactly the same thing as microsol. But the alcohol is at the shop. So, and the only alcohol I do have is this. It's kind of nice. It is a frozen passion fruit martini. I quite like these because they're quite refreshing, and actually they contain almost no alcohol at all. If you were buying them to get drunk, I don't think you could drink them at a fast enough pace. I think you'd be constantly in the toilet, draining liquid out of yourself to try and get the alcohol content into your body quickly enough. Interesting aside, but okay, let's have a look. What do Airfix recommend as the color for this ejection seat, so that we can then ignore that nice. So they are saying the main seat cushion is 26, which appears to be some sort of brown, and the belt's 89, which I think is like that blue nylon color. One of the things actually that I don't like about Airfix instructions, it's only the only thing really I don't like about Airfix instructions, is they do not include what these colors are anywhere, which is the one thing I think that almost every other manufacturer does with their own paint guides. think they have it for these main colours. Yeah. So for the main colours, they quote them. But for the colours called out in here, they don't, which seems a bit weird. It's one of those things that I actually thought about car manufacturers. I used to have a Ford Mondeo with the quick clear windscreen. So they have little electric elements all the way through the sandwich layer of the windscreen. So in winter, I remember being in Macclesfield, and my car was covered in snow. You just put the quick clear thing on, the elements heat up inside the windscreen, and it clears it really quickly. Fantastic little innovation, which of course I think they invented, and of course other cars didn't have it because they invented it and they kept it to themselves. And I always thought, you know, for these manufacturers actually shared these ideas and didn't patent them and, you know, protect them, you could just get such a fantastic car, because some companies do one thing really well, but then other bits are like, you know, not so good. I suppose Alfa Romeo, the Fiat Group, are kind of the ultimate expression of that. They design beautiful cars, usually with, you know, nice engines, but they're just so unreliable. I really wanted I think it's the Giulia or the Giulietta. It's like a 4-door kind of sports saloon from Alfa Romeo. Really nice. And I was going to get one of those as a company car. And I thought it's the only time I would ever get an Alfa Romeo as a company car, because if somebody else is responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of it, that's fine. If you have to take that responsibility on yourself and the cost, it's like, no, thank you. Yes. Buying the Airfix catalog for the Humbrol print chart or paint chart. Yeah. So there's a really good app called, as you can see here, Hobby Color Converter. It's only on Android, because Apple is the work of the devil, as I'm sure you all know. And I say that as a former Apple user, I was very taken in by the whole Apple seamless integration. I know Moss talks about it a lot, but the thing is, that's a great idea. It does not work. I had a family account. We had no ends of problems with stuff not talking to each other and things. So it's just a myth. Steve Jobs was a great salesman, far more than an inventor. Most of the stuff that Apple did and does now is actually not innovative. It's just they shout about it like they invented it. Usually those things are in other devices before. For instance, the swipey text thing was on Android before it was on iOS. Anyway, I digress. So let's have a little look. We want Humbrol acrylic, and number 26 is matte khaki. So you can see I've just clicked on matte khaki, and it's given me indirect equivalences and direct equivalences. 70879. That's a Vallejo green brown 114 matte. AK third generation green brown standard, indirect equivalences. Vallejo green brown 70879. I think I've got some of that. So this is where it does a RAL reference, RAL 8000, Revell, few Revels, Tamiya XF49, black khaki, Hobby Color H81, MIG, and XF49 again. So calculate equivalences. It'll show you to within a certain degree of accuracy. So if you want something which is, oops, you know, roughly similar, whack, load. If you need it to be exactly the same, it's obviously going to be less. Really, really good app. Hobby Color Converter, that's called. I wouldn't swear by it, but it is a really good rough guide because, as I've said before, colors are not the same in reality as on scale models, but at least I know roughly what I'm looking for. So a khaki color, basically, which is as we expected, right? So let's see what I'm going to use. Probably not dryad bark, that's for sure, from Citadel. I think let's try canvas. Very bad practice using a used palette, but hey. So the first bit is to work out actually which part am I painting. So before committing paint to model, typically what I'll do with something like this, I never go by exactly what the instructions say. Hawker Hunter, it's an FGA 9 we're doing. Ejection seat. Okay, so there we can see what we're looking at. Alrighty. Yeah, that's quite a bit darker than I expected. It always amazes me what a mess of stuff you have on these things. And also how prominent the rivets are. The first thing that seems to happen with these is the rivet wear. It's just crazy. Okay, so I think how they've depicted it is kind of this whole bit. This piece here, I think, is meant to be this. So this whole piece is this bit across here, which is kind of not how it looks, but hey ho. Yeah, I mean, this scoops in way too much, but again, we're not going to be too harsh. What you will actually see, again, won't really reveal any of those issues. So I'm just going to paint this whole thing and then obviously go over on the blue canvas, it looks like. Evening, Nunu. I'm afraid very boring normal colours on my Hunter this evening. No cowhide pattern, no bling. Boring old brown. Yeah, okay. So there we go, painted with just a bog standard Humbrol brush. Nothing fancy. I mean, this one's been fairly abused. It's still holding a reasonable tip, I guess. That's interesting. What's is that more? Looks like grey. This piece here. Look at this as well. Look at the wear side of that cushion. I mean, I know this is a one that's been taken out and is in a museum somewhere, but good God. I mean, you do actually even have like the little label here on the side is represented here if you did want to paint it, which is quite nice. This sort of brownish strap that goes across. I think you could probably paint this up to look quite cool. I'm just doing a very basic job here. So I think actually it goes all the way to there. Sort of one of those dual padded seats that they seem to use. God knows where all the straps go, what they're connected to. Different bits for the parachute and for pre-shoots and I don't know. Okay, so that can sit and dry there for a little. So this is, you see the pledge on this is dried. Pledge doesn't take very long to dry. Don't actually have anything to put. Oh, there we go. I should call these, you know, flying by the seat of your pants video, shouldn't I? No prep. I've just got no warm water. I'm just going to use normal water. You know, top of an aerosol can. This is real back to basics modeling. I mean, decals do not actually need a lot of water. People always think you've got to put them in hot water for ages. If you just put them in water and leave them like that, it will still dissolve the old adhesive that they use. It might take a little longer than 30 seconds, but actually the Cartograph one's pretty good. I always prefer it as well to have a controlled removal from here, rather than the worst thing, you know, is if you forget. I often forget if I do this, you know, when you got warm water, you put them in and then you look back and you see a couple of decals floating along or going to the bottom and curling up. It's like, no. No. Is that my sprue goo? Yeah, sprue goo. Have some mixed up oil wash here. Ah, there it is. So this is a mixture of, I think it's burnt umber and black oil paint, which I tend to use. Let's use a different brush from the one we were just using with water. I do have my limits. So I find Tamiya brown is a little bit too light and black is a bit too dark and actually a little grainy. Whereas this, see, it's kind of black, but it has a brown kind of undertone to it. I don't know if you can see that on camera. It looks black here, but it's not like a lamp black. And of course, because I mix it myself, you can mix it to whatever. This actually needs a cleaner on the top of the bottle. but you can make it the consistency you want in terms of, you know, how pigmented you have it. So I've actually got it on the lighter end of pigmentation, so I can basically have minimal cleanup. It's you know, laziness is a great driver for innovation sometimes. Now, the other thing you can do, of course, is pre-wash. Just, you know, give it a quick coat over with white spirit, which will help, which I usually do with Tamiya, again, because of aforementioned, that's actually not quite dry. Oops. It'll be fine. This is dry, however. And that will just help, again, the pigment flow into those little crevices. See, it just wants to draw itself along. Capillary action is a wonderful thing. Capillarity, as it should be properly called. My physics teacher was a stickler for these things. There's no such thing as centrifugal force. It's centripetal acceleration, he always used to say. It obviously stuck with me. Not that I think it makes the blindest bit of difference. You call it, everybody knows what you're talking about. So, of course, almost none of this will be visible. So we don't have to be too careful. But again, it's just to, the wash here is really to boost the illusion of shadows. Right, that's what we're trying to do here. The brown in this mix just gives it a little bit of a dirty, oily kind of appearance, rather than, I find, again, the Tamiya panel line accent, the black, it's convenient, but it's very black. So it's good for panel lining certain things. Which I don't know why I'm lining these, because the I'm going to scrape that away, and those are the pieces that are coming here. But in fact, maybe if I spread this over here a little bit, you can see this oily steel that is. Can you tell that? It's sort of a browny black. And again, it's only subtle. You may not notice it, but I think it's one of those things, again, I mentioned last time, as humans, we're very good at spotting little variations in things. You know, considering we only have 3 color receptors, we don't do bad. Several of the species, of course, see a lot better than we do. The mantis shrimp being the ultimate in terms of visual range. I think it has 17 different types of color receptor, including those into the infrared and ultraviolet. So it must be amazing what they can see. Oh, that's almost dry. So I think I'll actually go ahead and wash this before putting the decal on, because I don't really want to do it afterwards, because I don't want to muddy up the dials, because there's some nice detail on those, some quite crisp whites. I don't really want to fug those up with this brownish black wash. Let's just do these. Is that dry? Yep. Again, see even less of this, because this is the sidewalls of the undercarriage on the underside of the aircraft. And despite the fact that probably nobody will ever see this other than you and I, somehow I feel obliged to do this. You could, of course, just leave this or paint it pink. And it probably would not make the slightest bit of difference. Absolutely, Phil. I think at the end of this series, there will be a set of excruciating tests that I'll set you all. I'll delete all the videos beforehand so that you can't go back and do your revision. So make sure you're taking notes now. Oh, who else do we have? Doc Brown Scale Models. Hi. How's that latest episode of Beyond the Box coming along? I think we have some models at ransom until you provide it. Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Doc Brown Scale Models has very kindly offered to put up with Moss and I wittering away for, what was it, about 2.5 hours, I think, our podcast, our raw podcast is. And that there was just to demonstrate the kind of thing that he takes out. So us going and and I tell you what, you know, those kind of repetitions and things. So please don't go and visit Doc Brown Scale Models, because he's done sterling work for us, and he's got a fairly fledgling YouTube channel, I think, Doc Brown. Yeah, I know I haven't posted episode 8 yet, principally just because I've just been swamped with the shop. But I will be getting there pretty soon. Now that Maria is away this week, I have a bit of free time at the weekend. So if I don't do it before then, I should be able to get it all kicked off there. Now, is that going to be good enough? Do we give it a go? No, let's try a different one. So I have this, which is all my Humbrol brushes, my old brushes, and good God, look at that one. Bristles sticking out everywhere. And then I have my slightly nicer set of new ones for when I need them. But I also have my trusty Winsor & Newton, which I thought I put in here. Maybe not. Okay, we'll just use this. Alrighty. Where's that photo? So really the blue ejection seat straps are just these ones with the things on there. These, oh yeah, those are blue. I mean, there are a whole bunch of other straps here which aren't represented on this, but we'll give Airfix a pass. So that blue doesn't look far off. Oh, actually, what's that one? Oh no, that's too. No. Now you can see that Army Painter. So Army Painter is mainly a miniatures. Well, Army Painter produces a whole bunch of stuff mainly for miniature war games, so figure painting and the like. But I mean, figure painting, again, this is one of those kind of fallacies about the snobbery of scale models. I often find it around car paints. People talk about car spray paints. Oh, they're no good for. Well, actually, there are some car manufacturer spray brands and actually art companies that use automotive sprays for things like graffiti artists and stuff. They have triple ground pigments and things, which I doubt many of the paint manufacturers do in hobbyists. And really, that's what it's about, right? So I've not talked about paints, about kind of manufacturers and stuff very much on any of my videos. I was hoping to actually do a definitive test to put some of the bunkum that's talked about paints to rest. But unfortunately, the analysis that I wanted to get done is just super costly, because it's all about pigment particle size and density. So I was hoping to be able to submit samples of every manufacturer that I've got paint to this company, which would produce data on the micron size distribution of the particles within it, because all paints are suspensions or emulsions of little particles of pigment in some sort of binder. And depending on the size of those particles and the size distribution, it's not just about size, it's the distribution, because you can't get one size. There was always a, some sort of bell-shaped curve, is how it performs, right? In very basic terms. I mean, there are other parts to it, the binder used, the solvents used and stuff. But for instance, if you're using really, poorly defined sizes, so say your size distribution is huge and goes over into really big bits, don't use that in an airbrush because it will clog it up like nobody's business. You want something with small size, both distribution and particles. But guess what? Milling submicron particles is more expensive the more you do it and the finer you want it. So there's always a compromise between cost, size, distribution, and of course density, because if they're expensive, the temptation is to put less into your binder and solvent and everything. So there's all of these things going on. So what I wanted to do is submit, Model Master and Tamiya and Vallejo and, Game Color and Air Color, Model Color, all these different ones, Hawker and stuff. And then, come up with, well, this is how these all look. This is all the data comparing them, because there isn't any reliable data that you can find out there, on the web. So I thought I'd generate it myself, but it would cost literally thousands of pounds. And I thought that's beyond a YouTube video. If ever I get to 1 million subs, maybe I could afford that. But good God, I have spent a couple of £100 on producing a YouTube video. When I did the F-35 comparison, that cost a couple of £100 to get all of the kits. Well, actually over £200. It may make its money back at some point in the future. It certainly hasn't at the moment. But that's not why I did it. I don't do these things necessarily to make a profit on them. It's nice when you get the money from the videos because it enables you to do more of those things. If it had been wildly successful and had made its money back straight away, I'd have plugged that back into doing another one of those for, something else. I originally did think of doing that kind of concept. What's the best Spitfire model? What's the best Messerschmitt ME109 model? I'd end up spending a lot more than £200, which is why that hasn't happened. So you can see what I'm doing here is I'm just going over, doing a couple of coats just on the, really on the top. I'm not trying to go onto the sides that much with this, because the sides will be covered somewhat when we get to the wash. And if I do go and then get it onto the brown, that is what starts to make things look really obviously unrealistic, again, because your eyes are drawn towards kind of that overspill. So better to go slightly under than slightly over. What color is that thing in the middle? The buckle is black. Okay. Sure, we can do that. Not sure if that's just an optical effect, because it seems to be black here. But it almost looks like it's copper, that thing there. Well, so let's get a little bit of black. Also, let's get a bit of water in the center here. Do some washing. Meanwhile, as I've forgotten about it, you can see the decal is freely moving. What did I do? So let's put that on. One of the things I find most annoying about decals is, can you see there, that number 1 that's floating towards it? It's like all this stuff. I know it's inevitable to get all this print film, but I always find it always seems to be attracted to all the areas you don't want it to be. So with decals like this, I try to find a single point, like that dial right at the end there, like there, to anchor it. And then, as best as I can, slide the decal off into place so I'm not having to manipulate it and maneuver it too much. Like so. And you may or may not be able to see that, probably not. I only have to shift that over a tiny bit. And that goes down pretty well. That's pretty nice in terms of where it has ended up. Let's just pull the moisture out of that. No, don't come up with the cotton bud. That's why you should use a rolling motion, not a normal pushing motion. Okay, that's shifted a little bit. There, that's back to where it should be, more or less. There. Now, what I typically do is, you see, I'm actually putting pledge underneath. I don't know if you could tell though, I was just putting it under the edge of the decal. And then put it on top. That was not pledge, that was water. That's better. Now, a lot of people have said a lot of stuff about Johnson's Clear, aka Pledge, aka Future with Pledge with Future Shine, aka Future. I really like Johnson's Clear, and the reason is a lot of people will say it is just a clear gloss. It is not. I think I've said this before on the channel, one of the things. Anybody who tells you that doesn't know chemistry. It contains a number of things, a couple of them which you can't find in many things. And they are both solvation and plasticizer elements, chemicals that, if you think all that Microsol is doing it is a it contains a solvent. You can get the same effect by using Tamiya Extra Thin. Don't use Tamiya Extra Thin Neat on decals, by the way, you will destroy them. But a dilute solution of this in a slightly gentler solvent like ethanol, like alcohol, isopropanol mixed with something, will have the same effect. And all it does, it's softening the plastic, the carrier film of the decal, so that it goes down. And as it evaporates, naturally the thing wants to go down. It pulls it down into the surface, and obviously what's left, the glue residue on the decal, microset, if you've used microset, which kind of potentiates that, then sort of it pushes in and that pulls it on. Pledge, because it is also this sort of, this it has those components that give it that shine. It kind of has that, and it also dissolves itself, so you're almost pulling down into itself, and it's kind of embedding it in there. Now, depending on the surfaces it conforms to, if you're just doing it outside, so if you're doing it for things like this, it will completely conform your decal to, panel lines and stuff. Oh, I'd forgotten about that horrible pipe. Anyway, for things like this, it can need a little help sometimes. Although it doesn't seem to be doing too badly there. We may not need it at all. See how that goes. But, remember last time I said about if you look at a real cockpit, the dials are darker black than the surrounding. In fact, let's see if I can actually find Hunter Cockpit. Because I've been doing the searches recently, it's obviously got it automatically. Yeah, this is a good example. So can you see that? See how the dials on this? See that dial is a really dark, glossy black. This here, the surrounding instrument panel, is not as black as that. It is a very dark grey. So, of course, if we just did that difference between them, you wouldn't notice it at that scale. So again, you've got to overemphasize it slightly. Again, we're trying to create the illusion of how it looks to the eye, and not just put what is in reality down onto, the plastic. All right, so let's get some. I'll use this rubber black. I think I used the dark grey to do the cockpit before, so this rubber black is going to be a little bit darker. Just do that buckle. And also these ejection seat handles. Top and bottom. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get a really light blue. So this is Frostbite. This is a Formula P3 paint. Again, often Formula P3 kind of more known for miniature painting. And we're just going to mix a little bit of that with some of that blue. Just to get a bit of a lighter shade. Because it's going to look a bit flat if we just have these straps like this. And I'm just going to put this lighter blue just on the sort of more prominent pieces of this harness. And you notice the consistency of this is very watery. So hopefully it should be semi-transparent just to allow us to build up that. One, it'll dry much quicker. And secondly, we can just build up over that. Again, just to kind of create a little bit of the effect of light. So this is stealing from our miniature painting friends' kind of techniques. If you want to go mad, you can do blending and stuff, but I think for what's going to be seen in the cockpit, we don't really need to go that far. Just really to give it a little bit of an impression of visual interest of different amounts of light. And in the same way, what colour is this? Middle stone. I think this is one of the ICM colours they recommended for the RAF things. It's like, it's a little light. Oops. And again, just same sort of thing. Just going to put this on the upper middle edges of stuff. I think I mentioned last time, usually we do this with about 3 shades. It gives enough sort of visual texture for your eyes to pick up on, which is all we're trying to do right here. I think actually I need to go a little bit lighter. The other thing is, you see, I've just done that, and that paint, although this is a tiny paintbrush, it's still loaded, and I need to take some off before I actually go onto the model. Tell I'm concentrating because I'm not talking. I can't multitask. I'm male. So I'm not trying to blend this or anything. I'm not going to miniature painting levels of wonderfulness here. I'm just trying to create a little bit of depth here, because again, light will not act and do the work for us. So we need to try and help light along. I'm going to put a wash over this anyway, which is going to block out, the shadows and the edges and stuff anyway, and sort of boost that contrast, and also smooth over a lot of my roughness here. So unlike mini painters, we can get away with quite a bit in this sort of thing. Oops, that they would shudder at, I'm sure. And the thing is with this, if you find that you don't like the effect and you want to change it, you can just glaze over the top. It's not. Again, as I said before, there are no real dead ends in modeling. That is conforming pretty well. I am quite happy with the way that is turning out. It's looking quite nice. What else do we need? Let's just have a quick look back at that ejection seat. Okay, those buckles are also black. I was wondering, I thought they might be silver, but they are not. So let's just block those out. Oh, this is also a really nice thing about acrylics. You'll see me often using my hands, especially for dry brushing. I use this part of my hand to get the right amount of paint. You'll see me there just touching it on my fingers just to get rid of some of the paint, so I got the right amount to come onto the actual surface of the model with. Of course, these are non-toxic, so they don't do anything to your skin other than sit there until you wash them off. If you did that with enamels, it's not quite the same. Apart from the fact they don't dry instantly, so you end up getting paint everywhere. They also have the same effect on your skin as other solvent-based stuff, white spirit and things. It'll dry your skin and kill the cells, which is best not to do, generally. I'm going to pause there and have a quick bit of passion fruit martini. Any questions in the chat just while I am drinking? There was a stunned silence. Okay. So, our cockpit wash seems to be close to dry, not far off. Yes, there are other things that you can use, but none of them have the same formulation. And I think I mentioned in one of my, either it might have been Airfix and Chill, it might have been one of my streams, some other products that I am looking at. I think I found one. It doesn't act the same way. It's quite interesting, but it does some. I was looking for various things. One, it had to be readily available. It had to be cheap, and it had to work on decals and produce that shine and stuff and washes and things. Funny enough, it is another Johnson and Johnson product, but I want to do a bit more testing before I recommend it to anybody, because I don't want to recommend something that's going to knacker people's models. My own are okay, but I object to willfully destroying others' models. So the last thing I'm going to do on this ejection seat, before I'm calling it done for this, is just to do the little yellow stripes. On the black handles. Oh, big piece of ice. Get rid of that. So this is where Nunu's like, oh, I finally converted him. He's doing it pink. But no, unfortunately, and no, I'm not colorblind. Yellow pigments don't cover very well in general, especially if dark colors like black. However, pink does cover pretty well, as you can see by the way it's covering over this black here, and it makes an excellent basing for yellow, which is why I'm doing this here. So we have our pretty, oh, you can't really see that very well, can you? It's a lot brighter here in reality. Can't really get more light on that either. So now you'll see when I go over the yellow, it gives the yellow a really nice, bright, vibrant base. A little tiny bit over there. So there we go. That's the ejection handles painted. Oh, my doggo wants to go out. There you go. Probably to go out and bark at something, I expect. So the other thing is we need to wash this seat. So let's get our wash back. So I'm giving this an overall wash because, as mentioned when I was painting this, one of the things with the dry brushing is I went a little heavy because I knew it would be knocked down a bit by the wash. Hence, I want to make sure I keep that overall wash. Otherwise, it's going to end up a little bit too light. So this will just boost the contrast between the open surfaces, the edges, which have got that highlight caught from the dry brushing, and any recesses which the wash is going to pool into. Yeah. Can't tell much actually from that webcam view. But I'll take some proper photos with my real camera of all of this, just so you can see what I see. The other thing I did think of is whether a GoPro would be useful, this sort of thing. I just put that on my sexy gogs. What do you guys think? Would a modeler's eye view be useful? You see, what you can see in there, even just in the cockpit tub, is pretty minimal once we get the halves together, which is as expected. That's what we thought was going to happen, and we are not wrong. But again, I have to say the engineering of this, how tightly that fits in there, and how perfectly like this back piece is, because this is often an issue, right, in a lot of model aircraft, is this union between the back of the cockpit tub and the aircraft fuselage itself often is a bit ropey. This is pretty much spot on. Well, the only thing is it's so tight, I'm not sure about the fit of that front there. It seems almost too... It'll need clamping or cementing, I think, but it's pretty good. Pretty good. The instrument panel, again, looks pretty nice, considering the minimal work we've done on this. And just let's test fit that just to see how much we can see when we actually get it in. Yeah, as suspected, very little. I once went in a Ukrainian Tu-22M, the swing wing bomber, and oh my god, I didn't fly in it. You couldn't have paid me all the money in the world to fly in the thing. It seemed like a flying coffin. It was horrifically old-fashioned. just dials for days, dials and dials and dials. There was no glass cockpit. It was really agricultural is the word I would use. Oh, you have found. Oh, okay, let's put that up on there. That's like finding ambrosia. It will be okay. Provided it hasn't had anything in it when it was stored, there's no reason that it's got preservatives in it. It's also got quite a high pH, so it's quite alkaline. So it's not like things are going to grow in it. So absolutely, it should be 100% perfectly fine to use. And you're a very lucky fellow, my friend. So you can see, again, with the light here, you're not going to see a lot. But you might just be able to see. Let's see, I've got a movable light here. Let's see if I can get this over. Give you a... Oh, it's not plugged in. Okay. Okay, I can't do that then. You can just about see the dials. Can you just about see that? Just about see the dials. Ah, Moss, welcome. But for a out-of-the-box injection molded kit cockpit, that's pretty good. I think Airfix have done a pretty cracking job there. And that instrument decal just gives enough detail on the already molded dials there to make it look pretty convincing. So I think I'm actually not going to move that at all. I'm going to glue that in situ. Of course, I didn't remove any of the paint on there, but you'll find Tamiya Thin will burn through a thin layer of paint like that. I've also got the piece at the bottom which wasn't painted, so I don't think that's going to come loose anytime soon. And once we wedge it into these fuselage halves, it's got nowhere to move. So I'm pretty confident that's not going to have any issues. So I think we can go ahead and get that all slammed away. You missed the science lessons, Moss. Very disappointed. You have to go to the back of the class. This is Alex's live build and science lesson. We have come to decide between us as a collective. Right. So that front piece is really tight. If you're definitely going to need to clamp that. It's not it doesn't fit. It's just a really, really snug fit. So it's going to need clamping while that glues. But if you can see, otherwise, that is pretty much a perfect fit. That is perfectly aligned in the center there. It's perfectly aligned here at the back. In terms of overall fit, again, you really cannot fault Airfix's modern engineering. I mean, that is, spot on. Not so much my gluing of that pipe. That's going to need quite a bit of adjustment. Let's do a little surgery on that now. Actually, it's not too bad once that piece, which I pushed through before, which had that little bit of excess plastic from it being misaligned previously, is gone. Not bad. I think we're going to get away with that one. No, Moss doesn't get an F for lateness. He gets an E for Edward. There will be a few of you on this Discord, on our Discord channel, that will know what that means. Right. So let's go back, and we do need to go back a few steps to step 13. That is what we've just done here in 12. We've just gone back. Now we've painted the cockpit, put that in. So we do have these two extra little pieces to put in, C22 and C58, which of course are not two of the pieces that I previously painted. You know what I was saying earlier about seat of the pants modeling? Well, once again, I'm just demonstrating what I talk about, you see. It's all for your education and edification. Edward Decals, yeah. So those of you who don't know this in-joke, another YouTuber published a video complaining about Edward. Not just complaining, also talking about what they do right. I was talking about their decals, the innovation about the film over the top decals, which you then have to peel off, and essentially acting like it was the death of Edward almost, which I think is a slight overreaction. I have seen, I think, Modeling Weekly. I saw a video of his where I think it was back in 2022. He actually showed the use of Edward's new film over the top decals. I must admit, it didn't look terribly difficult to me. I've never used them. I don't really think they're necessarily, I mean, they look a bit complex, but I get where they're coming from, because obviously if you have a carrier film on the top rather than having it on the bottom, then you can make the decal itself very thin. That gives better conformity, gives a more painted on look. Let it dry, and then you peel off the carrier film, which is the thicker part, then you don't have that there. So that makes perfect sense, right? And I think any company that is thinking about this, I mean, why did they do that? It wasn't because they wanted to make life hard for us. It's because they thought that gives a more painted on effect, and modelers will like that. That's what modelers are trying to do. They're trying to achieve, greater accuracy in what they're looking for. So I applaud their innovation, even if the decals are crap. They should at least, they're trying, right? They're trying for the right reasons. It's the same as Airfix, right? Airfix are doing things for us as modelers. That should be applauded. Now, sometimes it doesn't always go right, and they're learning. They've got a way to go. That's fine, but I don't think wholesale just saying, this is terrible. God, what were they thinking? It's awful. It's the end of the world. They've got to change it, otherwise everything's finished, is a particularly helpful way to approach that. So that's kind of where we were coming from on the whole Edward decal piece. So now you guys are in the know as well. Which way around does this go? This way. Okay. I should have probably attached that to this piece before putting it in. That wasn't terribly clear on the instructions, but it's easily recoverable. Again, the world still continues on. The sky hasn't fallen, remarkably, because I made a small mistake in the instructions. I shall now go on a 2-hour rant about how Airfix instructions are terrible. They didn't make it clear. It's like, come on. Let's have a little bit of reason and common sense, people. Okay, that is actually a really nice kind of rendition of the inside of that wheel bay look. So essentially, again, they've kind of built up the structure that was there rather than just giving us an insert, you know, with just like a gap for the wheel and then this piece. Of course, you will not see any of this in our build when it's finished, but again, just a nice touch. I'm now going to have to very quickly paint that, of course, because we didn't do that before. Let's crack out the oily steel. Yes, I'm not wearing gloves, but Moss, I'm doing my bit. I'm drinking a passion fruit martini, frozen passion fruit martini from Aldi. Very refreshing it is too. Oh, wow, that was way too much paint. Yeah, and a little bit of water just to give us a bit of better consistency. And I'm just going to slap this on, because you will see none of this. So I'm just going to put a quick coat on and call it good, for the sake of brevity and sanity. Indeed, passion fruit. Don't do things by halves, you know. I'm going for a record tonight, Moss, of the least prepared live stream build. I've had to use this old palette because I can't find the one that I prepared beforehand. I couldn't use my airbrush last time because it wasn't working. And yet we've still managed to make, you know, most of a model. Who would have thought that modeling could carry on without, you know, exactly the right things at exactly the right time? I don't know about you guys, but I've been having fun. I mean, if you haven't, you guys have been watching me. I don't know what you're doing here if you're not. So, unless it's just for the science lessons. Okay, so I think we are at a stage we can close up. We have done all of this bit already previously, all of the air intakes, the turbine fan. We've done the same on the other side. Oh, that was almost a big mistake, wasn't it? We haven't done this. The 20 grams of weight. That would have been a foolish mistake to make. We've had a real tail sitter on our hands there. So we need something heavy to put there. Oh, my dog is in the way. Come on, there you go. Right. Not that I haven't prepared it, but just let me grab what I have up here. Of course, it's just out of my reach. So, on my great wall of modeling bits, which, if you haven't seen it, this is my great wall of modeling bits. You just grab that is the great wall of modeling bits. On the great wall of modeling bits, one of the little bins is this. I'm not sure the dog is heavy enough. Certainly, if I cut off a piece of him small enough to fit there, it wouldn't be. But this is so various pieces of lead. These big weights. Little pieces of white metal that have been cut off miniatures in the past. White metal miniatures. And a bunch of fishing weights. So this is what I use for my weighting in aircraft. Unfortunately, I did take my scales to work to weigh parcels for posting. So I've no idea how much this is. These, of course, do actually have weights on them. So the number one weights are 0.28 grams. Number 4, 0.36. They're 0.77. They're 2 grams. So we need 10 of those. And of course, I've only got one of those left because I've used plenty of those in the past. But if one of those is 2 grams, that's easily 10 times that. So all I need to do is cut that in a way that it will fit into that back there and super glue it on. And I think we'll be good. This is where the cheap snips come. Super glue. And the magic ingredient. This is from a German company, which I don't even know if it exists anymore. Hosch. Halt, halt und halt. Now, my German's not great, but stop, stop, and stop. So, but these are tiny little plastic balls, particles. So it has a similar effect to something like bicarbonate of soda used with super glue. It basically acts as a filling agent, so you can get a really strong bond. I actually got this from the bike show, the motorcycle show up in Birmingham years ago, when I went up there with a couple of mates. Okay, these snippers may not be the right things to use. I've got some tin snips, hang on. Okay, a couple of different options here. You have these tin snips, which may not be strong enough to... Oh no, look at that, they're perfect. That's what I needed. So I'm just going to quarter this. And then, with any luck, no. It's going to need these corners cutting off. So I think what I plan to do is glue these onto the back of this. And then all the pieces, I think I'll pack into this little chamber underneath with some of these, some super glue, and it all cement into one big mass. So let's see how that goes. What could possibly go wrong? Just balance that while that dries, while I cut off pieces from these other ones. So I think actually Doggo is about 5 kilos in total. Because he doesn't have a coat, you see. It's, he's all just solid muscle. He's not. He is fast asleep down here. I have a little bed. Because he's a rescue and he wasn't socialized, he has a lot of fear aggression. So if you hear him barking, at all, as he was, I think, in the first one, he went out and barked at random stuff. It's because anything outside of us and the home is other and alien and frightening. So the first time he meets anybody, he's like a rabid dog. You would think, oh my God, what's this? Apart from the fact he's only got one front tooth. And then the second time he meets you, if you're a woman, you'll be accepted. And if you're a man, he'll growl at you. And then the third time he meets you, anybody's fair game. You're part of the pack then. Probably find out this is like 50 grams or something. Put massive strain on the undercarriage. But unfortunately, without my scales, I can't really tell. So this little dispenser, this thing here. So essentially, you pour this in like a liquid. You see tiny, tiny little balls which go into all of the little spaces, and basically the super glue hits those and polymerizes with them, and that's why you get a really solid, strong bond. I'm not sure I'm going to need all those little pieces. I think that's enough. Let's give it a quick test. I think it's enough, but the test is always better. Let's try throwing on the wings, which, as we saw before, basically are just a snap fit. I mean, that sounds pretty good. Let's throw a bit more weight at the end. See where the center of gravity lies. Actually, I think it might need them. That wasn't a definitive pull forward. So I think let's dump all these bits in here. Before I glue them, I'll check the instructions and make sure we don't need this bit for anything else, because that would be a real disaster. $20 grams. Close it up. You're done. Right. We definitely don't need that chamber. Good. Right. You all saw that. There was nothing in the instructions, right? If I do this, it doesn't work. It's your fault. Okay. I'm just saying. If you guys didn't warn me, that's how it works, right? So let's put our little plastic sand granules in. Give it a bit of a shake about. Drop in some more super glue. Oh yeah. It's a nice hot mess of white glue, super glue and white metal. The other thing I should say actually with super glue is if you're doing this sort of thing, it's an exothermic reaction. Okay, so for those of you who don't know what exothermic reactions are, they are reactions which generate heat. So just make sure, so if I put my hand on that now, which is fine because it's got this stuff on it, it's not sticky, it is slightly warm, right? Because the polymerization of the super glue with these little balls generates heat. So one of the things you don't want to do if you've got a confined space is put a ton of super glue and then something like bicarbonate of soda in, because it will generate that much heat, it will melt the plastic. That's very, very childish. But then again, with that tag name, I'm guessing you never grew out of that. Yeah, right. So the good thing with it is this stuff. I can just, so you can see there's a couple of bits there that haven't glued in, and that's sandy stuff. But I can actually just put that back in. Actually, I want to manipulate them around a little bit because I don't want them interfering with that join, because as we saw, it's tight enough already, so we don't want any obstruction to it. So yeah, just be careful when you are using super glue and any sort of accelerator, which effectively this is, because it's accelerating the polymerization. The polymerization, of course, being how super glue glues things together. So actually, if people enjoy the little mini science bit, I was going to do a video based on the kind of chemistry of plastic modeling, and I bought these. Some of you may remember from chemistry. So these are just the ones I haven't used because these represent larger elements like sulfur and stuff, which aren't very present. But I have done created a bunch of molecules which are things like superglue, PVA, styrene, the different things like butyl acetate and acetone and things. If you guys would like to see that, give us a wink, just a notification, just if you'd like to see that, and I'll push that up the chain and get that out. Because as Moss will know, and anybody else who's a YouTuber here, you have an idea for a video. Other things happen, you know. It could be something you do straight away. It could be something that, 6 months down the line you're thinking, I've still got to finish that. Even if you've shot the video for it, sometimes editing a video can take a long time. So if you guys think that's a good idea and would like to see that, let me know either in the live stream comments or just a message on the channel or whatever. Those of you who are watching after the live stream, because we are not far off finishing, I am publishing these live streams afterwards on the main channel, so I'm tidying them up a bit, putting the normal background music and intro and things to make them flow a little better, especially the first one where we had a lot of problem with the webcam at the beginning. So again, if you're watching post-show, let me know in the comments if that's something you'd like to see, and I'll kick that one up the chain. Now, that, I think, is enough. I don't think that is going to tail sit now with that amount of metal. Now that's in there. So center of gravity is definitely, I think we're good with that. Which means we can get this sealed up. Let's put this together. A couple of my super glue so I don't do anything silly with that. Oh, can't make this show. There we go. Well, I'm happy to involve more of my day job. Something I've been doing for a very long time, so it comes very easily. Just rattle this stuff off all day. So as you can see, I've just tacked that top piece on. To start with, because again, I'm quite liberal there. You can't see anything. And I'm going to do the same thing under here, where again, I can slap on the extra thin to my heart's abandon, just to get that sealed up. So quite often, if I'm going to approach a fuselage build like this, and I'm not using something like Revel Contactor, I'm using Tamiya Thin, I'll do it in sections like this, so that I'm kind of, I have something to work with, some measure of stability in part of it, and then I'll go and tack other stuff off. Even if, I'm just clamping this now and leaving that, because you can always come back and add to that, which is in fact, I think, what I'm going to do here. So let's grab a couple of clamps, which of course I don't have to hand. Oh dear. It's all not too far away because I kind of got everything almost ready, and then other things got me distracted. Probably needs a bit of WD-40, doesn't it? Oh, definitely. Okay. Let's move that out of the way before I knock it over. And let's come to the front here and do this. So yeah, we're definitely going to need that clamping. This one I think is a better clamp. Yeah, there we go. Now, again, the problem I always have, I wish a model company would come out with some clamps to deal with it, is, the curved nature of fuselage sides makes it a pain in the ass for these sorts of clamps. So I'll use my burner clamps if I can find them. Okay, mister. So for those of you who do not know, these are burner clamps, burner multi-clamps, made in France, patented in 1990, and they're really good. So as you can see, they have these soft silicon pieces, so they can adapt to basically, almost any surface. Then they have these hard, I don't know what that material is, polystyrene maybe, I don't know, polycarbonate, I think actually those are. And then they're connected by a carbon rod. So the carbon rod has a little bit of flex in it, and then you push them together, and just the friction of the angle holds them together. It's like holding things together with your hands, with your fingers. They're that kind of flexible, and the kind of pressure that you get from them. So they're really good. And they're not that expensive. I'm not sure they make them anymore, but you can pick them up on eBay and stuff for sure. They come in a couple of different versions. There's this one, and then there's one which has a long carbon rod to enable you to do wider pieces. But I wish there was a company that did this sort of clamp with these sort of conforming silicon jaws. I mean, maybe there is, and I'm just missing it, but if you do know of one, let me know, because that would be really useful. Because the burner clamps, I find, you can use in almost any situation, he says. See, this is where that one fucked it all up there. Because, of course, it just has these grips which aren't meant for gripping curved plastic. They're meant for gripping wood and things. Whereas these silicon ones can grab, curved surfaces really nicely. The only thing is, they only exert sort of finger pressure. So they're not great for clamping things that you really need to clamp. I mean, of course, you shouldn't really need to clamp stuff, but sometimes we do. I do love the way you put Tamiya extra thin against something like this, and it just vanishes into the gap by capillary action. It's great. So we'll put this final one on, and then I think we'll finish out the stream tonight. The next time when this is dry, it should be pretty quick to whack on the wings and get us into something that actually looks like a Hunter rather than just a tube. Because at the moment, basically, we've made kind of a bit of a dildo, which I don't think was the intent. But there we go. Now I've just got to find some way of putting that without nudging one of those. Where is my aircraft stand? Amazing. You do a live stream, it's like everything vanishes to the furthest corners of your modeling space. It's over there. How did it get over there? Yeah. This is another super useful piece of kit. So this little stand will take everything from, sort of a 1/72 Spitfire all the way up to, well, I've had the 1/72 Vulcan on this particular one. So they are pretty versatile. There we go. Just bring the other one in just to make sure it doesn't roll off that side. There, that's awkwardly occupied my desk space now. Okay. Yeah, I really should get the clamps in the shop. I'll have to see. I don't know if there's a. I'll have to look into it. Definitely, that's a good shout. Well, could you? Yeah, the problem with that is the reason that these work so well is they're made of silicon, right? The same stuff you've got on spatulas and stuff in your kitchen. So it's nice and flexible, and it's a soft silicon. This, so it is like holding things with your fingers. So your fingers naturally, deform and compress to things, which is exactly what these do. And 3D printing in flexible materials is possible, but it's harder than normal printing. Let's just shift that across. It's harder than normal printing, just because if you can imagine trying to squeeze out a flexible material, the elastic properties are a lot different. It doesn't liquefy in the same way. And two, it's just a pain in the ass. So yeah, it's absolutely something you could do, but I just don't have time or the patience to do that right now. But maybe that's an idea for the future. Man's Model Moments, silicon clamps. There we go. On Amazon. Everything's on Amazon, isn't it? You'll probably pay more than you would if you bought them from another source, but they'll arrive in 2 days. And if you don't like them, you send your money back. So, we all decry Jeff Bezos and his, weird ways and terrible business practices or employment conditions or whatever. But you have to say, I do love my Amazon. I do love being able to order something and it comes the next day, not have to wait. Especially when you're doing stuff for videos, you have to have that piece, otherwise you can't get the video out. Amazon is a bit of a lifesaver. So I must admit, I don't warm to Jeff Bezos, but then I do appreciate the convenience of next day delivery. So a little bit of hypocrisy, maybe, don't know, but okay. So yeah, I'll if you forward that to me, Nunu, I'll put that on the link on this video as well to these to the burner clamps, because I do heartily recommend them. And yeah, if I can get them in the shop and sell them at a reasonable price, I mean, if I can't sell them for similar to Amazon, then there's not much point. But if I can get them reasonably, then yeah, that's definitely a good shout. Okay, guys, thank you for sticking with it for another couple of hours as we get this Hunter towards its more complete form. So as I said last time, I think a couple of more sessions and we'll have this. I think it's going to go together pretty rapidly from this point. Now that we've got the cockpit painted, the ejection seat is done. Next time, the ejection seat we can slot in. We don't even have to put the ejection seat in to do the rest of the aircraft anyway. So we can put that in whenever it is convenient for us. We've got, sub-assemblies like the pen nib tail already done. So I think it's going to be a matter of going through the rest of this construction sequence after stage 20. I think we've already done these pieces. Putting the wings on is a two-step. So I don't really see this is going to take very long. The flaps might take longer than the wings, to be honest. Then we've got undercarriage, which I'll probably do in a way that we can put it on after painting. So I think maybe one more session of construction, and then we'll do a bit of sanding, and then we can probably prime it up. So I don't anticipate too many more of these before the Airfix Hunter is done out of the box, and then we can progress to the Academy kit with all its resin bits and lovely photo etch, which I can swear over multiple times. That is these are said pegs. Davros, they are. I mean, they're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, because as you've seen there, if I'd done that, I've actually twisted the spring slightly out of that side, so I'm going to have to put it back in. But they have silicon ends, so they don't exert, much pressure, and they do stick on quite well. They're not quite big enough to do something like this. I wouldn't want to do that. I think you're going to put too much pressure on something like that, and then you risk deforming the fuselage. And obviously, if you've got two mating surfaces like this and they're deformed, they're going to glue like that on the edges, which you don't want. But for things like wings, where you've not got a lot of depth, these are great. I think these were $199 for 20, something like that. And they are available from Morrison's. They're available from Lidl and Aldi, and tons of places. You can get them from Amazon as well, but they're about 3 times as much, about $6.99 or something. But again, not the end of the world. Anyway, that last diversion, I shall thank you once again very much for coming through the session tonight. The next one probably be Friday, and we should get this into looking like an aircraft. So thanks again, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. Don't work too hard. Keep yourself safe, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.